Good day, folks. Welcome to On the Bench. It's Sport Fishing on the Fly. Today I'm going to tie for you a flashback pheasant tail. Flashback pheasant tail is one of the most effective flies in streams and lakes anywhere, and this is just a little variation of one. Make sure you have these materials ready before you tie the fly. For hook, I'm using a Flow Fly Fishing TH550. It's a check nymph hook number 14. You could use a straight shank for this or a curved caddis as well. For thread, I'm just using 18-aught nano silk in brown. It's any color thread's fine. It's going to be hidden by the dubbing anyway. For the flashback, I'm using flat tinsel in copper by Semperfli. It's 0.4 millimeter. And for the rib, I'm using fine tying wire in brown. For the body, I'm using pheasant tail, and this is also for the tail and the legs. For the bead, I'm using a Dazzle brass bead. It's a 7/64, and the color is mottled olive. I got these at Sea Run Fly and Tackle. And for the thorax, I'm using peacock dubbing. So I'm just going to start my thread here. This fly isn't, I don't use lead on it. I don't weight it. If this color bead came in a tungsten slotted bead for like a jig hook, I would totally buy it. I like the color of the bead, but you could put lead on it if you wanted to. I'm trying to keep it as slim as possible so that it sinks through the water column a lot quicker. So if you do that, it's like using thicker tippet as opposed to thinner. It'll go way faster through the water column the thinner your tippet is, and the same principle applies to your fly. So for the tail, I'm just going to pull off a few pieces of pheasant tail, probably around 6 or 8. Pull them straight out from the stem and then tear them away. It's a very short tail. And that's just my preference on this particular fly. I'm just going to cut that off. Next, I'm going to tie in my flat tinsel. When you're tying in this tinsel, it's important to just keep it right on top. Just going to bend that down. So just make sure it stays right on top of that shank. It will make a difference if it's off even just a little bit when you're bringing it up over top of the back of the fly. Next, I'm going to tie in my rib. You could use any color wire for this. It's fine. I just chose it because it's a little more neutral. I tie all kinds of pheasant tails with different color wires and different thoraxes and stuff. Such a deadly fly. For the body, I'm just going to take about 5 or 6 pieces of pheasant tail, even up the ends here. I'm just going to take a few wraps in behind this bead. It'll help when I go to lay down the legs and the flash. You want to keep the body as thin as possible, but you also want it to be durable. So the less pheasant tail you use for the body, the thinner it will be. I'm just going to apply a little tiny bit of glue here to the body. That can help it stay durable. Now I'm going to just wrap my pheasant tail. Touching turns. So make sure I covered all that thread at the back there. And tie that off. I like to tie it off really well. This material has a tendency to come undone very easily, so I usually give it a whip finish too, or a half hitch. I like doing a whip finish with the bead. So when I go to half hitch it, sometimes it ends up in front of the bead, and that's no fun. Now you just take your flash and fold it over the body, and try different color flashes with these flies too. Like Mirage is good, and Chartreuse is good. Red. And now I'm going to come in front of it as well. Take a few wraps here. Just don't want that coming out. Snip that off. I'm going to take my wire and counterwind it, trying to make sure I don't pull the tinsel off the top of the fly. If you tighten up at the bottom instead of the top, it helps so it doesn't slip if it is slipping at all. If you tie it down good and tight, it shouldn't slip. Just twist your wire off. Just take a few more wraps there. Oh. Bring my thread back. Now I'm going to tie in the legs, and I'm just using a few more pieces of pheasant tail for the legs. There's not very many legs on a mayfly. I'm just going to tie them right on top for now. And then what I've been doing is just pulling them to length. And then just taking my fingers and pushing them down on either side of the fly so they're not totally right on top. I mean, they can be. You can also use your thumb to splay them. Just so that, I mean, not that there's that many that the flash won't show. You could tie them on the sides if you prefer. And now just take your dubbing and make a little collar. Not too much. You could use peacock herl for this if you prefer, if you don't have any peacock dubbing. It's totally fine. I'm just going to apply a little bit of wax, if I can find it here, to the nano silk. Definitely helps when you're trying to put especially thin dubbing on. There we go, and whip finish. Make sure to pull it tight there. I don't usually apply glue to these with nano silk, it's pretty strong. I just do 2 whips and make sure I pull it really tight. There you have it, Flashback Pheasant Tail. Thank you for joining me on this edition of On the Bench. Take care, everyone. Tight lines.